In part two of a two-part episode, we are breaking down Chris Drury's eventful tenure as Rangers general manager. In today's episode is the best of Chris Drury, including some last-minute deals at the trade deadline, some timely contract extensions, and more.
You're Locked on the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 1009 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. Just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. And we are, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So, again, part two of a two-parter. Last week, we did an episode where we kind of examined the worst of Chris Drury's tenure as the Rangers general manager. You can go back and check out that episode if you would like. Today, going to be the opposite. Going to be looking at the best moves, best contract extensions, draft picks, trades, et cetera, that Chris Drury has made since he became the Rangers general manager. And just for a quick point of reference here, Drury officially became general manager of this team on February 5th, 2021. Same ground rules as last time. We're only looking at things that have been done by the Rangers from that date forward. Obviously, Drury was the assistant general manager for a number of years before that, but we're not looking at that time. Maybe, we do that in the future. If we want to go back a little bit further in time and look at some other moves that the Rangers have made, that's certainly a possibility. But for right now, it's only Chris Drury's tenure as the general manager, not the assistant general manager. So for starters, the good of Chris Drury, I think we got to look at a couple of in-house contract extensions that he has handed out over the years. I very generously talked about Adam Fox and Mika Zibanejad in the last Chris Drury episode, the worst of Chris Drury episode. Now, I don't believe for a second that those were bad contract extensions. I think both players basically got what they were worth, and maybe even a little bit less than what they're worth. I think at worst, that's kind of the going rate for players the caliber of both Mika Zibanejad and Adam Fox. But I put it in that episode because I can at least acknowledge some of the concerns from Ranger fans that maybe aren't the biggest Chris Drury fans, that feel that those contracts were either too long or too much money. Or in the case of Mika Zibanejad, you've got the full no-move clause in there for pretty much the entire contract. I believe Mika's no-move clause becomes like a partial no-move clause with like a week to go before the trade deadline in his the final year of his contract. But regardless, I can at least acknowledge some of the concerns that certain Ranger fans have, even though I'm glad that both players are here, and I think they got about what they're worth, and maybe even a little bit less, certainly in the case of Adam Fox, who, again, right up there as far as best defenseman in the NHL. But we're going to look at some contract extensions that, to me, were very, very good, and in many cases, excellent value for the Rangers as well. To begin with, we got to start with Igor Shesterkin. A couple of years ago, he signed an extension for 4 years at $5.67 million per season. This was almost 6 months to the day after Chris Drury became the Ranger general manager. And it's also one of the moves that Drury made that I don't think he gets nearly enough credit for. I don't think anybody ever really talks about this and never really looks at it as an excellent move, which to me, that's what it was. Now, let me address the elephant in the room here. This so far, and you can even include this last game in it, as much fun as it was, the Rangers beating the Islanders 6-5 in overtime in that outdoor game, electric atmosphere, just awesome stuff, epic comeback, the whole 9 yards. Igor was not at his best in that game, and he has not been at his best this season. He's now in the third year of a 4-year deal. I know, again, that Igor has certainly played better than this in the past, and he has struggled at times this season, and there is some concern going forward, but I don't care. This contract was still an absolute steal. There are currently in the NHL 11 goalies making more money per season than Igor Shesterkin. Now, I don't know exactly where Igor ranks in the 2.5 seasons since he signed this contract, but it is certainly better than 12th in the league. Again, I do think this price is a steal for the Rangers. There's a lot of goalies making more money per season than Igor Shesterkin that cannot hold a candle to Igor. So again, this was a nice move. It was a timely move, and it was a gutsy move because, as a lot of people pointed out, when the Rangers gave this contract extension to Igor Shesterkin, no goalie at that time when Igor signed the contract, and I don't know if this has changed since then, but at that time, no goalie had ever been given such a big contract for this much money, having played as few games in the NHL as Igor Shesterkin had. But you know what? Igor was called up in the middle of a season, so he played half a season, and then he played a full season, and the Rangers like what they saw. He was obviously off to a very, very good start in his NHL career. Little bit of a leap of faith there, but it was a risk worth taking. The Rangers saw an opportunity to, throw some money at this guy, but not completely break the bank. And I mean, Igor Shesterkin was still very young at the time that he signed this deal. He's got a lot of money coming to him. And ultimately, since this contract extension has been signed, Igor has been underpaid. Again, I acknowledge his struggles this season, but if you look at the total body of work, Igor Shesterkin has been a steal at this price. And I also have to kind of wonder here, does Drury look to strike an extension with Igor Shesterkin this offseason? I think there's a very good chance he's going to do exactly that because Igor has only 1 year left on his contract after this one ends. And when you consider the fact that, again, Igor has been excellent for his entire career, with the one exception being this year. But you might be able to get him at a little bit of a discount, given the fact that this has been his weakest season to date. The alternative here is to basically wait until next season plays out and then try to sign Igor to an extension. And if you do that, by then, Igor's a UFA. All the other 31 teams are free to bid on him as they would like. He's an unrestricted free agent, and he can do whatever he wants and sign wherever he wants. I don't think the Rangers want to let it get to that point. And again, if you look at where things stand right now, him having a little bit of a rough season this year, they can probably get him at a price that's going to be a lot cheaper than it would have been if, say, they had to extend him after his Vezina winning season. Don't wait until he bounces back in a major way next year and has stats across the board that are better than his stats this year and can then negotiate with all the other teams once he becomes an unrestricted free agent. I would say get it done now. Again, take that leap of faith that Igor is the guy that he was for his first 4 seasons in the league and not so much this season that's happening right now. And that's not to say he hasn't had any good games. He has. But again, not his best season. Good time to pounce. Maybe a little bit of a sign low opportunity for Drury and the Rangers. Another big-time extension by Chris Drury and the Rangers. Filip Chytil, 4 years at $4.44 million per season. This was an in-season deal that occurred last year, and it was good to get Filip Chytil locked up. The concussions, they kind of are what they are. They're out of the Rangers' control, but I do think this is another case where Drury signed Chytil to an extension at about the right time because by this point, Chytil had shown enough to make you believe that he was really starting to emerge and he was really beginning to come into his own as an NHL center. And it's not like he, put up like earth-shattering numbers, but he was clearly moving in the right direction. Last year was clearly his best season as a New York Ranger. So you do the contract there where you have some evidence that, okay, this guy's going to continue on an upward trajectory, but you don't wait so long where he just absolutely explodes and becomes a point-per-game player and his price tag goes up. I think that was another example of Drury, moving in and offering the extension at the right time. That's exactly what he did. And again, the concussions are out of the Rangers' control right now, and all the best to Filip Chytil. But for this contract, when it was signed, I do think it was the right move. And of course, with Chytil being on LTIR, obviously his cap hit does not count against the Rangers at this current time. So we'll see how that goes going forward. But again, I thought the timing was right for this extension with Filip Chytil. And while we're talking about 1/3 of the kid line, how about the other 2/3 of the kid line? Lafreniere and Kakko in recent seasons. Now, they were both restricted free agents when they signed their extension. So by that very nature of being in that position, you don't have a ton of leverage. But he got Kakko for 2 years at $2.1 million. He got Lafreniere for 2 years at $2.33 million. Both are reasonable. And Lafreniere this season greatly exceeding his $2.33 million cap hit. I think pretty much everybody would agree with that. And Lafreniere will be under contract at that same price tag next season. So you got at least one more year of Lafreniere being a complete steal for the Rangers. And again, props to Drury for getting him signed to a reasonable amount. Kakko, I mean, he struggled this year, but he's at least picking it up recently. And 2.1 million, like I said, I don't think that's an unreasonable price tag for somebody of, Kaapo Kakko, what he's given you thus far in his NHL career. You can even look at some of the smaller contract extensions. I think some of these were good. Jimmy Vesey, first of all, Jimmy Vesey, props to Drury for going out and getting him, bring him in on a PTO. A lot of us were kind of underwhelmed by this move at the time. You can even count me among you. I see Jimmy Vesey's coming back. It's like, okay, I mean, I guess we'll give it a shot. PTO, we'll see if he can make the team. But at this point, I mean, I know in the last game he was up there on the top line, but for what he's done this season, show me a better fourth line player in this league. He competes his tail off. He kills penalties. He's added some offense. He's back to scoring some goals recently. He's somebody that you want out there at the end of a game when the Rangers are protecting a 1-goal lead, and all for the low, low price of $800,000 per season. Drury went out and got him on a PTO and then signed him to an extension in the middle of last year. Vesey is still on the team this year for $800K. He'll still be on the team next year for $800K as well. Jimmy Vesey, bringing it every night and doing a lot of little things to help this team win, and all once again just for the price that is only $25K over the league minimum. So good stuff there. And just one of several extensions that I think has really worked out in a nice way for the Rangers since Chris Drury became the general manager. We're going to keep everything rolling in just a second, turn our attention to some of the best free agent signings that Chris Drury has made since becoming the Ranger general manager. And like I said, we'll do that in just a minute here. First, though, we definitely want to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Indeed. We're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. And today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is also brought to you by FanDuel. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. All right, let's go ahead and keep everything rolling here. Talk a little bit about the free agent signings, some of the best free agent pickups that Chris Drury has made since becoming the Ranger general manager. And somebody that I think we got to start with right away here is Vincent Trocheck. First of all, the decision to go with Trocheck over a couple of the other UFAs that were available on the market that season, the importance of that cannot be understated. Obviously, Rangers have just made a run to the Eastern Conference Final, and they got eliminated by the Lightning. We go into the offseason, and it was pretty obvious that the Rangers were going to need to get a center under contract and, have that player presumably center the second line, which is, of course, exactly what Vincent Trocheck has done since he signed. But, the Rangers get knocked out of the playoffs, and they've got two in-house free agents who can both play center. They were, of course, Ryan Strome and Andrew Kopp. You also had Vincent Trocheck out there as a UFA, and really, these were among the three best centers available in free agency that offseason. It was a difficult decision because you could make a case for any of them, right? Ryan Strome's a guy that had been here all along and kind of went through the rebuild with the Rangers and kind of emerged as a leader on this team. I know they had like 23 alternate captains, but he was one of them. In all seriousness, it was 6, but he was one of them. And obviously had incredible chemistry with Artemi Panarin. That was Panarin's guy, bread and butter, the whole 9 yards. Ryan Strome was somebody that obviously became a good player with the Rangers. And again, the familiarity was there. Andrew Kopp, there wasn't quite as much familiarity, but they brought him over at the trade deadline. he seemed to fit in great, very good defensive forward. He can play all three forward positions and do so effectively. It seemed like he was a really good fit for this Ranger team as well. And it was certainly possible that the Rangers could look to go in that direction and stick with Andrew Kopp. And then the other option, option C, Vincent Trocheck, who, concluded the last run of his Canes tenure by getting knocked out by the Rangers in the second round. But that was Drury's guy. And you look at the decision, there were three players available. Rangers clearly picked the right guy. Vincent Trocheck, I thought was very good last year. He's been nothing short of incredible this year. He's out there with Panarin and Lafreniere. That's been the Rangers' most effective line night in and night out. Trocheck having possibly the best season of his career and was rewarded with an appearance in the All-Star game. His importance to this team, he was outstanding in the outdoor game as well. 2 goals, an assist, and 9 hits. Just brings it every single night. One of those guys that does a little bit of everything, complete Swiss Army knife. And I don't want to think about where the Rangers would be without Vincent Trocheck on this team right now, because the injury to Hedl obviously hurt quite a bit. But there's nobody else really that you can have centering the top 6 and feel all that good about other than obviously Mika and Vincent Trocheck. You take Trocheck out of the equation here. I mean, I guess Brodzinski probably centers the second line, and Brodzinski has played well. But yeah, I'm glad Vincent Trocheck is on this team. And again, difficult decision in the first place, who to go with, Strome, Kopp, or Trocheck. They go with Trocheck. It's clearly the right decision a couple of years later here. As far as other really nice free agent signings by Chris Drury, how about Jonathan Quick? 1 year at $825K. All this talk in the offseason. He's done. He's washed up. He's old. He beat the Rangers in the Cup Finals. We don't want him. Get him out of here. Why do the Rangers always go after these old players? Quick has been... His importance cannot be understated to this team. Obviously, we just got done talking about Igor a couple of minutes ago, and this has been the most difficult and challenging season of Igor's career to date. Jonathan Quick comes in here and finds a way to adapt to life as a backup goalie. There was a short time there where he started 3 games in a row, so I guess technically he was the starter there, but Jonathan Quick has been fantastic for this team this season. Obviously picked up the Rangers when Igor was hurt, has picked them up at other times when Igor has just been ineffective, and the Knights last year raved about how good he was for their locker room. It seems like he's fitting great with the Ranger locker room as well. He obviously wanted to be here, grew up a Ranger fan. Sure, he's still got family and friends in the area, and that's worked out great. I mean, again, you're paying one of the best goalies in hockey just $50K over the league minimum, and he has really, shown well for himself. And quick honorable mention here while we're talking about backup goalies. Chris Drury signing Yaroslav Halak last year, that didn't turn out so bad either. He got off to a shaky start, but ended up having a pretty nice season for the Rangers and did it for the low price of just $1 million per season. Then we come to a couple of other, smaller free agent signings by the Rangers. Erik Gustafsson. Now, he has struggled recently, at times. He did score a goal not too long ago, so hopefully he's getting it going offensively a little bit. But if you look at the total body of Erik Gustafsson's work this season, everything that he's done from the start of the season up until now, it is certainly better than somebody, once again, making just $8K over the league minimum. I think overall, Gustafsson has given you a nice return on that investment. So another small signing, but another, mostly good signing by Gustafsson. You hope that, by the time the playoffs roll around, he's back to that level that we saw from Gustafsson early in the season. We'll keep our fingers crossed that is indeed the case. Another smaller signing that really worked out, Johnny Brodzinski. We mentioned him just a second ago. He signed a 2-year deal a couple of off seasons ago. He was an impending UFA at $762,500 per season. He is in the second year of that deal. Obviously served an important role in Hartford as the captain of the Wolfpack. Everybody raves about his leadership and, puts up very impressive numbers in the AHL. And now, for the first time in his career, an NHL regular, a true NHL regular. You won't even think about taking Brodzinski out of that lineup right now, centering the third line. And that third line really kind of starting to find themselves recently, starting to find an identity with him and Cooley and Kakko. So these are all good signings. And one other thing I want to throw out there, it's not a literal free agent signing, but what about the decision to go with Peter Laviolette? And I realize, obviously ownership probably has some say in that as well. But, we saw last year, obviously, the Rangers getting knocked out in the first round of the playoffs. Drury and Gallant reportedly clashed after, I want to say, Game 4 of that series, where the Rangers just did not play well and allowed the Devils to even the series at 2 games apiece. And Obviously, Ranger fans, there were some questions about Gallant. There were some Ranger fans that just did not like him, did not think he was the right man for the job, did not want him to continue coaching this team. But however you felt about Gerard Gallant, it's not easy to fire a coach, to part ways with a coach who went 99, 46, and 19 during his 2 seasons as the head coach of the New York Rangers. His teams in the 2 years combined for 217 points in the regular season, and he took a rebuilding team to the conference final in his first season. And again, however you feel about Gallant, those are all facts. So to have, the conviction to move on from Gallant and go with Laviolette, I think people mostly feel pretty good about Peter Laviolette and the job that he's done as the Ranger head coach. Every now and then, the Rangers will be in a slump or they'll be playing poorly, and somebody on social media will take a shot at Laviolette, but Laviolette wins everywhere he's gone. I think a lot of players under his watch are having some of the best seasons of their career. There's certainly players that fit that description. And hey, they've won 7 in a row. If you take away January, the Rangers have been the best team in the NHL. Like, October was awesome. November was awesome. December was mostly awesome. Faded a little bit toward the end, but mostly an awesome month there. January sucked, and February has been awesome. They have yet to taste defeat in the month of February. So, again, a nice hiring there, it would certainly seem, in Peter Laviolette as the next coach of the Rangers after Gallant was dismissed or mutually parted. I guess that's the official verbiage, but let's be real, Gallant got fired. We're going to keep everything rolling in just a second here. Going to turn our attention to some of the best trades that Chris Drury has made since becoming the Ranger GM, specifically those around the trade deadline, a couple others as well. First, though, we definitely would like to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience, what brings home the winning trophy, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you will always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you are burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at all the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit. Only available to U.S. customers. All right, let's go ahead, keep everything rolling here, get into some of the wheelings and dealings, the trades that Chris Drury has made as the general manager of this team. One that you have to start with, a couple of years ago, getting Frank Vatrano from the Florida Panthers in exchange for a 4th-round draft pick. Vatrano came over and basically fit like a glove. We needed a guy that wasn't afraid to shoot the puck, had an excellent shot as well. Frank Vatrano fits that description. He might be the best top-line right winger to go along with Mika and Kreider that this team has had since Pavel Buchnevich was traded. And of course, we traded Buchnevich we didn't trade Buchnevich. Drury traded Buchnevich, and that's the problem. We talked about Pavel Buchnevich and that trade in the Worst of Chris Drury episode. So again, you can go back and watch that episode if you would like. But bottom line, Vatrano has come as close to anybody I think of fitting in with that top line since Buchnevich was traded. Again, Vatrano played a big role on the run to the conference finals that season. There are Ranger fans that want a reunion right now. Obviously, it would cost more to trade for Frank Vatrano at the deadline if they were to do it again this year. But even the harshest of Chris Drury critics, the people that don't think he's cut out for the job, doesn't have the experience necessary, they think he's just a yes man for Dolan and for Sather and all this other stuff that people say that don't like Chris Drury, that they say about him. Even his harshest critics, you got to give him a little bit of a tip of the cap here and acknowledge that this was a really good trade. If you're not able to do that, then to me, you're losing credibility, because the Rangers gave up basically nothing to get somebody that came in and, like I said, fit in very well and played an important role for this team down the stretch that year and into the playoffs. That same season, not as big of a trade, but how about going out and getting Justin Braun in exchange for a 3rd rounder? Now, you could argue maybe a little bit of a pricey, cost to give up for Justin Braun. Braun at this point was like 35 years old. His best days were behind him. But I give Drury credit for going out and making this happen, because in a roundabout way, he was basically correcting an offseason mistake. Another move that we covered in the worst of Chris Drury episode where he went out and signed Patrick Nemeth. Now, when Braun came over, they initially went with Nemeth and Braun, and then there was kind of a rotation. Schneider would be the odd man out, and then Braun was the healthy scratch for a couple of games, and eventually they got it right, and they went with Schneider and Braun over Nemeth. Nemeth was the odd man out and the healthy scratch. But, Braun did fine for a veteran defenseman to play on the third pairing. I think this definitely helped the Rangers. The fact that it got Patrick Nemeth off the ice for most of the playoff run, that's a win there for sure. I think another win for Drury and the Rangers, acquiring Andrew Kopp. Now, again, a little bit pricey, but Andrew Kopp did play a very important role during the Rangers' run to the conference final. The Rangers got Kopp for Morgan Barron, a second-round pick, a conditional second-round pick that became a first-round pick when the Rangers made it to the conference final, and a fifth-round pick. And again, a little steep, but Kopp played a huge role for this team. Rangers had a shot at it that year. They decided to go out and go for it. And, again, that was kind of the going rate for a player like Andrew Kopp at the deadline that season. I think also trading for Tyler Mott twice. This is somebody that did not cost that much, but I think, was an effective fourth-line player for the Rangers while he was here. The first time around cost them just a fourth-round pick. The second time, they traded Julien Gauthier and a seventh-round pick. So they didn't really give up a whole lot either time. Tyler Mott, obviously not a superstar, but again, a valuable fourth-line player, somebody that became a crowd favorite while he was here. Good penalty killer. Good moves by Drury both times to pick up Tyler Mott. I don't think it's going to happen a third time at the deadline this year, but I guess never say never. Even something like trading Alex Georgiev. The entire hockey world knew that the Rangers could not afford Alex Georgiev, that they were going to have to deal him because they just didn't have the cap space to really pay any amount of considerable money to their backup goalie. And they were able to trade him to the defending Stanley Cup champions, and they get 2 third-round picks. One was Bryce McConnell-Barker, the pick that they made. They got Bryce McConnell-Barker. They drafted him, and that seems like a pretty good pick. More on him in just a little bit here. They also got a 5th-round pick from the Avalanche, and they got all this in exchange for a goalie with a career save percentage of .908, a career goals against average of .294. Not terrible numbers, but certainly not sparkling numbers either. Georgiev was great in his first season with the Avalanche. This year, though, he is struggling a little bit. So to get, 3 draft picks and including 2 third-rounders, not too bad of a return for Alex Georgiev, especially when, again, this entire league knew that the Rangers were going to have to trade Georgiev that offseason. I think another big win for Drury. How about getting a first-round pick in exchange for Nils Lundqvist and a conditional 4th-rounder that can eventually become a 3rd-rounder? Nils was a former first-rounder by the Rangers. That is true. But when he was traded, he had all of 1 goal and 3 assists in 25 games with the Rangers. Seemed to be a bit of a defensive liability at times as well. Also a little bit undersized. He's done okay with the Stars. I wouldn't say anything special, though. And he's even been a healthy scratch at times, since the Rangers traded him over there. So to be able to go out and get a first-round pick in exchange for somebody that really had no role on your team, and even when he did play, was kind of shaky at times. I think, again, another win via the trade market for Chris Drury. Another big one, Vladimir Tarasenko, Nico Mikkola from the St. Louis Blues. The Rangers absolutely had to go out and get a high-scoring frontline right winger. They did that with Vladimir Tarasenko. Tarasenko mostly played well during his time with the Rangers, and again, filled just a massive need that the Rangers needed to take care of going into the deadline that season. Drury kind of pounced and got him early in the trade deadline season. It wasn't like a last-minute deal or anything like that. And also Nico Mikkola, he provided a nice upgrade for the third pairing. He replaced Ben Harpur in the lineup. Harpur had done okay, but I think most people would probably agree that Mikkola was an upgrade. And of course, he was with the team throughout the rest of the regular season and their short run in the playoffs as well. Even some of the smaller trades, I mean, these are really small trades, but you got a 4th-round pick in exchange for Brett Howden. And I know Brett Howden went to Vegas, won a Stanley Cup. Fine, that's good for him. Basically, every Ranger fan had given up on Brett Howden at that point. He was supposed to be the centerpiece of this trade with Tampa Bay, and he was going to come in and be this awesome player. And it obviously just never worked out, certainly not from an offensive perspective. And to get a 4th-rounder for him a season after Brett Howden scored 1 goal, and the 1 goal was an empty netter, I mean, to me, that sounds like a win as well. And this last trade I'm going to mention here real quickly is going to sound ridiculous, but I consider it a very, very small win. Drury sent Vitaly Krasov to Vancouver and got a 7th-round pick and William Lockwood. Now, a lot of people are going to say, well, they should have never drafted Krasov in the first place. That's obviously true. But again, Chris Drury was not the general manager when that happened. So he had to clean up somebody else's mess, and he traded Krasov and at least got something in exchange for him. Because, I mean, at the time, Krasov's value could not have possibly been any lower. He's not even playing in the NHL now. So to get literally anything in exchange for him, like I said, a minuscule win for Chris Drury with that trade. Figure we can talk a little bit about draft picks here as well to conclude the episode. And as we said in our Worst of Chris Drury episode, most of these, pretty much all these players that Drury has drafted since becoming the Ranger GM are still playing out. Obviously, these guys are still very young, and they're making their way through junior hockey or college hockey, or some of them are with the Wolfpack right now. So the story is yet to be written on any of Drury's draft picks. But we did call him out for one not so great pick in that episode. So we're going to take a look at some players that Drury drafted who were off to very good starts wherever they're playing hockey right now. Since the Rangers have drafted them, there's no guarantees that these guys are going to become stars for the Rangers, but it does seem like they're off to, solid starts overall. So 2021, you get Brennan Othmann in the first round at number 16, somebody that plays a very physical style and somebody that should have a good NHL career. He would seem to have, pretty safe floor, pretty high ceiling as well. This guy puts up video game crazy numbers in every league that he plays in. The way he just dominated the OHL was absolutely ridiculous. We saw him play 3 games with the Rangers this season and having a good first season with the Wolfpack as well. So, I mean, to me, I'm still kind of holding out hope that we might see more of Othmann this season. I feel like I'm kind of in the minority there, and I get where that fear comes from because the Rangers do have a history of maybe promoting forwards to the NHL before they're actually ready. But to me, it's an option that's at least on the table, giving Brennan Othmann a call up before the end of the season and maybe even in the playoffs. And it'll depend a lot on what the Rangers do at the deadline. But as far as Othmann being back with the Rangers, I don't hate the idea. 2022, Rangers did not have a first-round pick, but with their first pick in the draft at number 63 overall, they go out and they get Adam Sykora. Sykora has 19 points in 39 games with the Wolfpack, just a ball of energy out there. And somebody that looks like he's going to become a good NHL player. We'll see how the whole thing shakes out. They also got the aforementioned Bryce McConnell-Barker at number 97 in the 3rd round. He's a center currently lighting up the OHL. So, again, no guarantees for any of these players, but all these guys are off to good starts. And then finally, and we have the rest of the NHL to thank for this, but nevertheless, Drury still made the right pick, or what seemed like the right pick in this past year's draft in 2023, picking up Gabe Perreault at number 23 overall, just letting the NCAA on fire right now. I wrote down these stats the other day, so they might have changed. I don't know if he's played any games since then, but 45 points in 27 games with Boston College. He leads college hockey in points. Keep in mind, he's a freshman, leads all of college hockey in points, and obviously off to a heck of a start. You could maybe even throw Drew Fortescue in there as a good Drury pick. Again, there's zero guarantees, but Drew Fortescue in the 3rd round at number 90, big defenseman, won a gold medal with the U.S. World Juniors team, and also currently a big contributor at Boston College, along with Gabe Perreault there. So these would all seem to be good draft picks as far as we could tell, looking into the future or trying to look into the future. As far as some final thoughts here, to me, Drury's only 2 completely indefensible moves where it's just like, my God, that was just awful, are the Buchnevich trade and the Patrick Nemeth signing. Other than that, he's made good moves in free agency. The Vincent Trocheck signing really stands out among some other big moves. He's had some, timely and or team-friendly extensions to different players on the Rangers, Igor Shesterkin, Jimmy Vesey, the entire kid line. He seems to have had some pretty good draft classes as well, and he does a nice job acquiring, important players at the trade deadline with not having to give up an arm and a leg. We haven't seen the Rangers trade, a very highly thought of prospect. We haven't seen them trade. I mean, they do trade draft picks, but I never feel like it's a completely unreasonable amount of draft picks that they give up in exchange for whatever player they're acquiring at or near the trade deadline every season. So, as far as a letter grade, I'm not going any lower than a B+ for Drury, and I think I would even lean a little bit more toward an A-. I think overall, this is kind of what I've been saying the entire time. You go back and you examine everything that's happened, every move that the Rangers have made since Chris Drury became the GM. I think that the good far outweighs the bad. And look at the results. I mean, the Rangers have been a great team during Chris Drury's tenure, winning, going over 100 points in each of the last 2 seasons. Obviously, last year didn't end the way that we wanted it to, but having another incredible season right now, one of the best records in the league. They've led the Metro Division from pretty much coast to coast here. So the proof is in the pudding. I think overall, Chris Drury has been a very, very good general manager for the New York Rangers. There's always things you can nitpick. No general manager in any sport is going to bat 1,000. But again, to me, the thing I've been saying all along, I'll say it again right here, right now, the good far outweighs the bad. Chris Drury has had far more hits than misses as the Ranger general manager. And he's going to have to do the same thing this year at the deadline. We'll see if he can work some magic and bring in some players that can help this team hopefully go on a nice playoff run, a deep playoff run, and hopefully even be the last team standing. We can pretty much call it there. The only other little bits of news here at the very end, Igor was the first goalie off at practice today, which means that he will very likely start tonight against the Stars. Ryan Lindgren got 10 stitches after the outdoor game, but he said that he's good to go. He apparently did have the full face shield at practice, so I'd imagine if he plays in this game here tonight, especially having 10 stitches, that he's very likely going to be wearing that in the game as well, but we shall see. That will do it for today, though, guys. Once again, if you'd like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Once again, that is lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Definitely give us a follow on Twitter as well, at @LO_NY_Rangers. Once again, that is at @LO_NY_Rangers. And definitely subscribe to Locked On New York Rangers YouTube channel. Thanks again, guys. I will see you next time.